As several lawmakers this week were able to view the footage of that September strike, the Atlantic wrote, quote, "At one point, the men raised their arms and seemed to signal to the U.S. aircraft above, a gesture some who watched the video of the incident interpreted as a sign of surrender. Then a second explosion finished the men off, leaving only a bloody stain on the surface of the sea. Footage of the two men's desperate final moments made some viewers nauseated, leading one to nearly vomit. It was worse than we had been led to believe." Hegseth and President Trump have not presented any evidence that the targets were narco-terrorists. Instead, they're arguing that unidentified boat crews sailing in international waters are narco-terrorists and therefore considered fair game if you stretch the post-9/11 authorization for use of military force all the way to today. And according to a new report from CNN citing two sources with direct knowledge of his remarks, the admiral who briefed lawmakers told them the alleged narco boat at the center of the September strike was actually heading to link up with another vessel bound for Suriname, not the U.S. One thing is clear: during this scandal, the White House can't seem to keep their story straight. Why?
I can tell you that was definitely not artificial intelligence. I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented.
Can you talk a little bit about the strikes and the controversy around Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth?
I don't know anything about it. He said he did not say that, and I believe him 100%.
I watched that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever. I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand.
Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what happened?
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release. No problem.
Later on, a couple hours later, I was told, hey, there had to be a reattack because there were a couple folks that could still be in the fight.
All right, folks, we need to dive into our top story tonight because there are now growing calls for embattled Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to publicly release the footage of that September 2nd strike on a boat in the Caribbean. This comes as several lawmakers this week were finally able to view the actual footage of that strike, and what they're describing is absolutely horrifying. The Atlantic wrote something that should make every American's blood run cold. At one point, the men raised their arms and seemed to signal to the U.S. Aircraft above, a gesture some who watched the video interpreted as a sign of surrender. Then a second explosion finished the men off, leaving only a bloody stain on the surface of the sea. Let me repeat that. A bloody stain on the surface of the sea. That's what's left after American military forces targeted shipwrecked survivors. The footage of these two men's desperate final moments made some viewers nauseated, with one person nearly vomiting after watching it. One lawmaker said it was worse than they had been led to believe. This isn't just some abstract policy debate or political theater. This is real people being killed in ways that appear to violate the most fundamental laws of war. Hegseth and President Trump have not presented any evidence that the targets were narco-terrorists. None. Instead, they're making this absurd argument that unidentified boat crews sailing in international waters are narco-terrorists and therefore considered fair game if you stretch the post-9/11 authorization for use of military force all the way to today. That authorization was for going after the people who attacked us on September 11th, 2001. It was not a blank check to kill suspected drug smugglers in the Caribbean 2 decades later. By the way, I am trying to do my best to gather all the information I can for you and share it with you. Please leave your likes and comments, and I would be grateful if you subscribed. Let's continue. According to a new report from CNN citing two sources with direct knowledge of his remarks, the admiral who briefed lawmakers told them that the alleged narco boat at the center of the September strike was actually heading to link up with another vessel bound for Suriname, not the United States. So even by their own account, this boat wasn't heading to America. It wasn't an imminent threat to U.S. territory or forces. It was allegedly heading to Suriname, a small country on the northern coast of South America. One thing is absolutely clear during this scandal. The White House cannot keep their story straight. Watch how the narrative changes depending on who's speaking and when. Hegseth initially said, "I can tell you that was definitely not artificial intelligence. I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented." So he's claiming perfect knowledge, complete certainty, watched it live as it happened. Then Trump gets asked about it and says, I don't know anything about it. He said he did not say that, and I believe that 100%. So Trump is claiming complete ignorance, saying Hegseth didn't say what Hegseth clearly did say. Then Hegseth changes his story again. I watched that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we've got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour, 2 hours, whatever. I did not personally see survivors, but I stand because the thing was on fire. This is called the fog of war. This is what you and the press don't understand. So now he's admitting he didn't see the second strike, didn't see the survivors, but he's invoking fog of war as if that explains everything. When asked if he'll release the video, Trump says, I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem. As if he's being transparent and has nothing to hide. But then Hegseth tells a different version. Later on, a couple hours later, I was told there had to be a reattack because there were a couple folks that could still be in the fight. Notice how the story keeps shifting. First complete knowledge, then complete ignorance, then partial knowledge, then fog of war, then promises to release video, then explanations about reattacks being necessary. They cannot keep their story straight because they're making it up as they go, adjusting the narrative based on what information comes out and what political cover they need in the moment. Let me bring in some expert analysis here from retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, who wrote about this in The Bulwark this week. When asked if the second strike as described by lawmakers was a violation of the laws of war, Hertling says unequivocally, I do. This whole thing, we're going to see continued releases, new information on a daily basis as there's continued inquiries and investigations and members of Congress stepping forward with new information. I think we're at the very beginning of it. This is going to go on for a long time with a lot of people giving more insight. But yes, I do believe a second strike, a restrike, not a double tap, which I talked about in an article today. That's a different kind of approach, as well as a misuse of the term fog of war by the secretary. All of these things are coming together now, and I think people are getting a greater understanding of what exactly occurred on the 2nd of September. This is a 3-star general, someone who's been in combat, who understands military operations intimately, saying clearly that this was a violation of the laws of war. The shifting stories from the administration matter because they reveal consciousness of guilt. If what happened was legitimate and lawful, there would be one consistent account. Instead, we're seeing the kind of story changes that suggest people are scrambling to find a justification that might stick. What's particularly concerning is the chain of responsibility and chain of command here. The president says he has faith in Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth says he has faith in Admiral Bradley. Everyone is pointing fingers down the chain rather than taking responsibility. As one analyst pointed out, this is classic Trump. He's fully behind someone until he fires them via tweet or Truth Social post. They'll back people until suddenly they don't, and then that person becomes the fall guy. But what's really disturbing is how this is playing out politically. We're going to hear things come out one by one, which politically muddies the waters because people don't pay attention to every detail. Republicans are digging in, Democrats are digging in, and they're doing it over the institution of our military. While we've always had some political use of the military, they've never been put into a political fight quite like this, where potential war crimes become a partisan issue rather than a matter of law and military honor. General Hertling makes a crucial point about optics. Usually, American commanders-in-chief and secretaries of defense subscribe to the notion that the buck stops with them. They take responsibility when a mission goes bad. Yes, there are questions about operational details, but political leadership usually mans up and says, this was our decision, this was our call. Not in this case. They're throwing it down the chain of command. Everyone is saying, I don't know, I wasn't there. I didn't see the second strike. It was General Bradley who made that decision. Hertling predicts we're going to see continuation of that blame shifting, but he also believes military people who testify with film, audio, and documents showing the timeline will be readily transparent about what they did. The military folks now know they're in trouble in this situation, and the more military witnesses provide truth under oath, the more it's going to contradict what the Secretary and President are saying. Here's something revealing. When Admiral Bradley went to testify before Congress, usually when a combatant commander testifies in a secret session on something this important, he's accompanied by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of Defense. Hegseth did not go with him on Friday. That's a huge indicator. The Secretary of Defense wouldn't even show up to support his own commander during crucial testimony. That tells you everything about whether Hegseth is actually standing behind these people or setting them up to take the fall. The disparate responses from Republican lawmakers are telling. Don Bacon, a retiring congressman who's also a retired one-star general, says this is appalling. Then you have Senator Tom Cotton, himself a veteran, saying there's nothing wrong here. Cotton is lying. He knows he's lying, and he's using his military background to sound more authoritative while defending the indefensible. It's deplorable. The story is breaking down mostly on political lines, with some Republicans saying, I've seen this, it's horrific, someone's got to be held accountable, while others defend it completely. There's serious investigative work to be done, but when it comes to the political lens, it's just more noise, especially for the American public. And there's concern that next week we'll be talking about ACA subsidies or something else, and this story will move off the front page despite its seriousness. But what's particularly striking is how this video is being described. It almost sounds like a Rorschach test, where the way you view the world completely reshapes how you interpret the same images. We hear that perhaps the men waved their hands as though trying to get help. Whether that's a white flag surrender or reaching out to other alleged traffickers seems to depend on who's watching and what they want to see. Some lawmakers say the men were immediately trying to get back on the boat to continue their drug mission. Others say it's very clear they were helpless and hanging on for dear life. So the question becomes, is it possible this video is that confusing, that there can be so many different interpretations of the same scene? Our military has very capable, high-quality cameras that should make these things clear, not ambiguous. General Hertling's answer is definitive. Should not be. You're not wrong at all. I've used these kinds of cameras in combat. They are very transparent. You can see exactly what's going on. I've not seen the film that lawmakers saw, but I've got to tell you, the dynamics between many lawmakers, Representative Bacon is also a veteran, a retired one-star general. We were together in Iraq in 2007. He's retired Air Force. He has seen this kind of gun camera tape throughout his career. So when he says it looks like a valid hit, and when you've got Senator Cotton saying the things he did, it's two realities. It's Earth 1 and Earth 2. I don't understand it. Hertling continues, if the films are shown to the American public, you will be able to see exactly what was going on this boat. In the military, we sometimes derisively call these things war porn. People like looking at it because it shows exactly what happened. And when you're making an assessment of what's occurring, you can see what's happening. Then Hertling shares something personal and powerful. I was blown up one time in a Humvee by an IED. You're not looking to gather your material or turn the wheels around. You're shocked by the time you're blown up, trying to figure out what to do next. If those two individuals on the boat were actually trying to turn the boat over or gather up cocaine that was floating around, they're a lot better person than I am. And I just don't believe that was the case of what was happening. This is someone speaking from direct combat experience, someone who knows what it's like to be an extremist, who understands that when you're shipwrecked and your boat has been destroyed and is on fire, you're not thinking about salvaging cargo or getting back in the fight. You're thinking about survival. You're in shock. You're trying not to die. The idea that these people represented a continuing threat that justified a second strike is absurd to anyone who's actually been in that kind of situation. The video exists. The truth is on that video. The only question is whether it will be released to the American public so we can all see for ourselves what happened, or whether this administration will continue hiding behind claims of fog of war and national security while shifting blame down the chain of command. Every day that video remains hidden is another day this administration is covering up what increasingly looks like a war crime committed by American forces under orders from civilian leadership, who then lied about what happened and threw military commanders under the bus when questions started being asked. This story is not going away. more information will come out, more witnesses will testify, the truth will eventually emerge, and when it does, we're going to have to reckon with what was done in our name and who gave the orders and who lied about it afterward. That reckoning is coming, and no amount of fog of war rhetoric or blame shifting is going to prevent it.